The story. The Iron Cathedral. I first heard about the place from a man who had been drinking too much for too long. He was a railway worker, one of the last of the old guard who still remembered when the lines were carved by hand and lit by lanterns instead of humming fluorescents. I'd been sent to inspect a section of tunnel that night, and afterward I stopped by the sort of bar where the smoke hangs low and the floor is sticky with years of spilled beer. He was there, hunched over a chipped glass, muttering to anyone who would listen. He spoke of something beneath the city, deeper than the subway lines, deeper than the utility tunnels and drainage systems. A structure, he said, older than the streets above, older than the foundations of the city itself. He called it the Iron Cathedral, though when he said the words, he chuckled in that way drunk men do, as if mocking his own story. He claimed he'd seen it once, when a tunnel collapse opened into a chamber no map had ever marked. He didn't speak like a liar, he spoke like a man who wanted to forget. He was dead a week later, they said. A train car slipped its coupling and crushed him. Accidents happen all the time in work like ours, but something about it stuck with me, and so did his story. I worked as a surveyor for the underground transit system. My job was dull but steady. Crawl through old shafts, measure walls, check for stability, mark faults. I was the sort of man who could tell you the grade of concrete by its smell after a fresh crack. I'd grown used to the silence of those places, the drip of water from overhead pipes, the low vibration of trains on the next line, the rust groaning quietly in the dark. Maybe that's why his words stuck. Maybe I wanted there to be more down there than dust and pipes. For months, I let it itch in the back of my mind. Then one winter night, I found it. We'd been working in an abandoned section sealed since the 60s. Concrete barriers blocked the line, their paint faded to chalk. The air was colder there, filled with the dry rot of decades. My flashlight skimmed across flaking steel and riveted joints until it caught on something odd, a crack in the wall, too even, too straight. When I tapped it with my boot, the echo came back hollow. I stayed behind after the crew left. With a pry bar and stubbornness, I widened the gap and slipped through. What I stepped into was not a tunnel, it was a vault. The chamber spread beyond the limits of my light, its walls rising into shadow. They were not brick or stone, but iron vast plates riveted together. Their seams oozing black oil that dripped in slow, steady lines. Pipes ran like arteries along the surface, some as thin as veins, others thick as trees, their joints hissing with faint steam. The air was hot, metallic, heavy with a constant hum that vibrated through my ribs. The floor beneath me was a great lattice steel slick with grease. When I crouched, I could see through it down into a tangle of gears, immense wheels turning in endless patient rhythm. They weren't driven by any engine I could see. They simply moved, grinding with a sound like the gnashing of ancient teeth. Shadows shifted down there, vast and slow, shapes too large to comprehend. The hum was not constant. It rose and fell in waves, patterns that wove together until they became rhythm. And that rhythm became song. Not a song for the ear, but for the body, for the bones and the marrow. It was the sound of pistons in harmony, boilers sighing, cogs locking in sequence. It was a hymn made of engines. I should have turned back. I should have sealed the wall and walked away. But curiosity is a dangerous weight. I walked forward, each step echoing like a hammer strike. The air grew warmer, the hum louder, the mist thicker until it curled around my ankles like smoke. And then I saw it. The cathedral rose at the vault's center, an impossible structure of iron and brass. Arches curved like ribs, their surfaces etched with lines too intricate for human hands. Spires reached upward, vanishing into darkness, bent inward like fingers clenched in prayer. At its heart stood an altar, not stone, but a block of bronze layered with cogs, pulleys, shifting wheels that rearranged themselves even as I watched. The altar glowed faintly green, light leaking from cracks in its surface. Resting upon it were books not of paper, but of steel plates bound in iron. Their pages were etched with diagrams, symbols, schematics that twisted the eye. Some resembled engines I recognized, gears, turbines, crankshafts. Others defied reason, shapes with more angles than space should allow. Machines without fuel, devices built not to move but to pray. My hands moved without permission. I lifted one of the books. The instant my skin touched the metal, the hum deepened. The floor vibrated, bolts shuddering in their sockets. The walls exhaled steam in long sighs, and the song of engines swelled. No longer background but overwhelming, a choir of iron shouting in unison. The diagrams crawled as I looked at them, lines rearranged, angles shifting into new geometries. They told me things I could not understand but could not unsee. They told me of the builders, beings older than flesh, older than stars, who forged the world with tools, who carved mountains into gears and rivers into pipes. They had worshipped not gods, but the great engine, a machine so vast its turning shaped reality itself. It told me the great engine fed not on fuel, but on time. Each revolution devoured seconds, minutes, hours, grinding them into nothing. It kept existence alive through sacrifice, and when its gears stopped, time itself would shatter. I dropped the book. It hit the altar with a clang that rang wrong, too deep, like striking a bell the size of a planet. The sound went on and on, echoing through unseen spaces. until it felt as if the whole vault were vibrating. The gears below faltered. For the first time, their rhythm broke, and then the walls began to move. Pipes swelled, their joints bending as if something massive pushed beneath them. Arches creaked, steel stretching like tendon. Steam hissed in bursts like the gasps of lungs. The cathedral was not just a building, it was alive. I ran. The grates clanged beneath me, bolts snapping loose, gears below spun faster, screaming, teeth grinding sparks into the dark. The hum of machines roared into a shriek that made my vision blur. Steam blasted my legs, burning through fabric. I stumbled, clawed at the wall, and squeezed back through the crack, just as the iron plate slammed shut behind me. When the crew returned the next day, the wall was whole. Seamless, no sign of a gap. No one believed me, but I hear it still. At night, when the radiator hisses, when the subway passes below my building, when my old ceiling fan ticks, I hear the hymn, the sound of 1,000 gears in prayer, and it is changing me. The first signs were small greased under my fingernails, though I hadn't touched a tool, the taste of copper in my mouth. Then I began waking with cuts shaped like rivets pressed into my skin. My chest aches with every heartbeat, and sometimes I swear it doesn't beat at all, it ticks. I dream of the builders. I dream of their hands made of tools, of their faces hidden behind welding masks, of sparks falling like stars. I dream of the great engine, vast beyond imagining, its teeth turning not in space but in time. And I know what the hymn is saying now. It is not worship, it is hunger. The Iron Cathedral is waiting, and one day, when the last tick of my heart fades, I will return to it not as flesh, but as one more cog.